William J. Wedge, W-E-D-G-E, of 431 Westmoreland, Lansing, Michigan, 48915. Bill's phone number is area code 517-485-4639. The interview was conducted by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center on January 25th, 1990 at Bill's home on Westmoreland Street. This is tape number 1 of 3 tapes. Okay, Bill, if you would just start, please, with your name and your address and your phone number for us, please.
Well, my name is William J. Wedge. I live at 431 Westmoreland Avenue in Lansing. Phone number is 485-4639.
Okay. When did you start, Bill, at the plant?
I hired in at Oldsmobile January the 8th, 1928.
All right. What were you doing, or what were you hired in as?
I was hired in as a sign painter and show card writer.
Oh my.
And for the simple reason that Oldsmobile was starting one of the biggest hiring programs, building programs on record.
Okay.
My job was to paint signs for each building, covering bay signs, sections, department numbers, etc.
Oh, okay.
We covered all the old buildings, thereby meeting every supervisor in the plant, which wasn't very large at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that came to my attention was that when I hired in, Vic Brown was a runner for the employment office,
Okay.
and he later rose to a high position
Yes.
in management. He took me back into the plant to see Frank Elwell, the plant engineer at that time, and we discussed what my work would be.
All right. Bill, Bill, let me interrupt for just a second, if you don't mind. Where was the employment office when you came in?
The employment office was in a little one-story frame building outside the plant, between the sidewalk and a fence.
Oh my goodness.
It was located just at the west side of Division Street Gate.
Oh my Lord.
The employment office and personnel services and part of the personnel department was also in that building.
Isn't that something?
Fellow by the name of Miller was the employment manager.
All right. Okay.
At that time, there was nothing in the employment office on employees' records that was typewritten. Miller just wrote it out and stuck it in the file.
Oh my goodness.
It was all handwritten. Bessie McCree handled the personal finances.
All right.
Art Miltner was the personnel director.
And they were all there in that building?
Yeah. Well, he had a portion of his department was located in the basement of Building 20.
All right.
There is where Dr. Gunderson, the plant physician, had his offices. Also, the information that was compiled for our monthly magazine was drew up there by a fellow by the name of his name forgot me.
No, that's okay.
Uh,
Well, let's see, the publication at that time, what was that, Bill?
Yeah, we had a publication.
What was the name of it, do you remember? Was that the
Oh,
Oldsmaker at that time?
yeah,
Okay.
because later it became Team Magazine.
Yes.
Uh, Frank Shiverton,
Okay.
had he done the artwork for the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Later, in the latter part of that year, of 1928, he quit Oldsmobile, went to Walt Disney Studios in California.
I'll be darned. Okay.
Uh,
What was in the rest of that building, Building 20, Bill? Besides the...
Oh, the Building 20, Fisher Body had their cafeteria in the basement,
All right.
right where our office is.
Where the old Plant Protection office
Plant
is?
Protection was.
Okay.
And we had quite a time there for a while in 1935 trying to get rid of the cockroaches in the old cafeteria. Well then, as Victor Brown took me back to the plant engineer's office,
Okay.
we went through a little building that was just south of where the main office was.
All right.
In that building, a fellow named John Curtis was the supervisor. We were building the last of our touring cars, open bodies.
All right. Okay.
He built the entire body there,
Uh-huh.
the entire open body. Well, that was the last year, 1928,
All right.
of the open bodies.
Uh-huh.
Then they, at that time of the year, the general wage throughout the country, I worked in a lot of places,
Mm-hmm.
and 40 cents an hour.
Okay.
9 hours a day,
All right.
5 hours on Saturday.
Okay.
In all places, including Oldsmobile, you got paid by cash in a little envelope.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You'd line up at Saturday noon and different lines, and the timekeepers would
Uh-huh.
hand you your little envelope with your money in it.
I'll be darned.
And the reason for that, the banks would close at noon, and you couldn't get there during the week, see?
Okay.
So you was paid cash.
Uh-huh.
If you short anything, why, kind of late to get to them. I never was short, and I don't know of anybody else that was either.
Uh-huh.
Well, anyhow, to explain where they set me up, at a place to work.
Okay.
There was a building that was an L-shaped. It hooked on to the main office.
All right.
The main office ran from Division Street east 1 block, and then went south 1 block.
All right.
The employment office was located on the 2nd floor.
Okay.
On the 1st floor was exhibit and display, the garage, and storage areas.
All right.
On the part that went south, polishing and plating had the 1st floor.
Okay.
That was run by Chris Shewan
All right.
and Ed Remus. And on the 2nd floor, where the old assembly line used to be for the runabouts,
Yeah.
the track was still there.
Really?
Yeah, over on the east side of the building.
Okay.
The track was still there. The pipe shop, the electrical department, Stores K, and my office were there.
All right.
Well, it was interesting, the whole thing, because I started right out. The first building I went to was the only newer building, which probably was built about 8 or 10 years before that.
All right. Which, you remember which one?
27B.
Oh, 27B, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I started in there with all the old signs,
Yeah,
and a fellow by the name of Carl Dobbins was the superintendent of
okay.
the sheet metal.
That was all sheet metal plant, the building 27B
Yeah,
was?
that's all it was, is there.
Uh-huh.
And Dobbins had that.
Okay,
Then I went into building 27A,
all right.
and of course Lee Smith was the superintendent there.
Was that the paint shop? Or was that something else?
Yeah, that's the paint shop.
All right.
Assembly line, Bud Barrow was the superintendent.
Okay.
And then Mike Miller was the assistant superintendent.
Now that was over on the other side of the street, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In 16?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that covered the building 20.
Okay,
That's where the line started.
all right.
See, Fisher Body had hooked on, and
Uh-huh.
they shoved the bodies through the open door there down to the track
Okay,
into building 20. Up on the second floor.
yeah.
That was the fellows that handled that.
Okay,
Claire Bigelow, who in later years became the night superintendent, was a general foreman at
Okay.
that time.
uh-huh.
Then you also had building 25.
All right,
There's where we got started with our Viking.
all
That
right.
was the assembly line for the Viking.
Okay.
The old buildings are still there.
Oh, yeah, they sure are.
And 17 and
Mhm.
so on.
Okay,
But when you got out there, there was no warehouse.
all right,
We didn't have 32 and 75 then.
okay.
It was an open dock. And the new cars, as they came off the line, were shoved out there and taken for the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
The boys would come in and get the cars and drive them out to Sobers and C&J.
All right.
They didn't bring any truck in there, you know.
Mhm,
They
mhm.
drove right out there. And then also, people that wanted their cars came here after them.
Okay,
Arrangements were made for that.
all right.
And the others were shipments to California,
All right,
once the entire car was loaded on boxcars.
all right.
And then that was all handled by Earl Cunningham.
And that was in that open dock where building 3275 is?
Yeah, that was handled by Earl Cunningham.
All right.
Earl also had the other,
Uh-huh.
fellow named Hopkins, took care of the foreign shipments overseas.
Oh,
The cars were knocked down, fenders, so forth, boxed up
oh, yeah,
in the boxes,
okay.
and loaded on the boxcars and shipped out to the coast.
Where was that all done? Was that done there? in
That was done on
same
that
place?
open dock.
Oh, yeah,
On
okay.
that open dock,
Uh-huh.
loaded right out of the boxcars on the siding there.
Yeah,
And that was it. The old test track
yeah,
for our early
yeah, the
Oldsmobile
little circular,
was circled right around there in that area between 21 and, well, right on
Yeah.
out to where the warehouses are,
uh-huh.
32 and 75.
Was that still there, Bill? Could you see remnants of it?
That track was still there at that time.
All right,
Wasn't used.
yeah.
Wasn't used. Huh?
Was it wooden? Was it wooden? A wooden track?
No, it was
Dirt?
Just dirt.
All right.
Dirt track. And in fact, I don't know now, I'm not there anymore, it's been
Right.
20 years.
Yeah.
But a portion of it was still there. After they built 3275, a portion of it was still there,
Uh-huh.
but they used that as the frame yard.
Oh, yeah,
So,
okay. Yeah.
probably isn't anything
Yeah.
Uh, well, anyhow, that was Cunningham, and then Hopkins took care of the Ford shipment.
All right.
Now, after I got through with 27, I started there with 27B,
Yeah.
there wasn't anything else until the big open field. Oh, that was a big open field, clear over to where Building 28 is.
All right.
That was built about the same time 27B
Okay.
was. That was our motor plant. And it sat right up to right up next to where Scott's Playfield is.
Okay.
That would be just about Walnut Street.
Yeah.
That was our property line right there.
Okay.
And on the west side of Building 28, of course, across the railroad track,
Yeah.
was our cafeteria.
Oh, what?
It was in a big two-story house. They didn't tear it down, see, when they...
That was part of the old Seeger engine plant, or the old Reliance engine
No,
plant.
that sat in there too, a little low building,
Yeah,
old building, but it was back in quite a ways.
yeah.
Well, we had that big open field from the main office up to Building 28.
Oh, yeah.
And this cafeteria was in a old two-story frame house.
All right, okay.
Fellow named Cap Prine was the...
What was his name?
Cap Prine.
Prine?
Prine.
Oh, okay.
He was an old Army doctor.
All right.
We called him Cap Prine. He had charge of that. I remember that because I came in at night with a couple of the other painters and painted the kitchen. Well, the people in the main office wouldn't eat there.
Oh.
They had to walk across the field to get there. Of course, they could have walked up Elm,
Yeah.
and then down the field a ways.
Yeah.
And where the main office would go is out Division,
Okay.
and there was a little old restaurant. It was still there until Oldsmobile bought it out,
Okay.
bought the restaurant. It was an old frame thing. Well, they'd eat in there, and then the houses on Division Street and Sycamore, these pretty nice homes at that time.
Uh-huh.
They all served meals in their dining rooms.
They did.
Yeah. All lined up down there. You can stop at most any house on
Yeah.
Sycamore or Division, and they'd have their signs out, of course.
I'll be darned.
And they served you light lunches
Uh-huh.
in their dining room.
Okay.
Uh,
Did people brown bag a lot or bring lunch buckets too, or didn't they do that in those days?
no, yes, well, the hourly employees did.
Yeah.
A lot of the old timers would eat their meals, then take them old fender blankets, stretch them out on a workbench, and take their little nap after
Okay.
that.
Uh-huh.
Except in the summertime. In the summertime, we enjoyed them noon hours. We had entertainment. They would bring in, usually, most of the time, we would get the boys' vocational band to the boys' vocational school.
Yeah.
They'd come out during the noon hour and play music.
I'll be darned. Where did they do that? Right out in the yard?
No. Our property line was Elm Street.
Okay.
See, we came from Logan, down along, it was Isaac Street at that time.
Yeah.
Down along Isaac Street to Division, and on the east side of Division, down to Elm,
Yeah.
then from Elm, down down to Walnut, where
Okay.
Building 28 is.
All right.
That was our property line. Well, Ralph Weigat owned that property from there to
Okay.
the old Isaac Street, Old Avenue.
Yeah.
So all we had to do was walk across Elm Street. Then we had a gate there. And we used to let our employees walk out, and go home. But most of the time they made them go to Elm Street or Division.
Mm-hmm.
We go through there, and there's where we had a nursery set up. Old arms.
Yeah, yeah.
You play that. Horseshoes, play that. Boxing, had a lot of boxing matches.
Okay.
It was just a lot of entertainment we had there.
You did that all during the lunch hours?
During the lunch hour, yeah.
Okay.
Every day,
Yeah.
during the summer when it was nice. And then, of course, our entertainment with the band.
Yeah.
We liked that better. Well, anyhow, we finished up our old buildings there, and then the new buildings began to come up.
Okay. Bill, just let me back up a minute. The old Reliance buildings, what was left there when you started?
It was, they were low buildings.
All right. What was going on in there?
There wasn't any work in there at all.
Oh, all right.
In fact, we didn't use them.
Oh.
It wasn't too much. There wasn't too much to them.
Uh-huh.
The boys on Plant Protection had to go into them, of course, to see
Sure.
if there wasn't any fire hazard with there. There was two old buildings we did use. One old building, I think it was 125,
All right.
two-story outfit. It had no windows in it. It was like a dungeon. And it was full of bats. And I remember because when I got into Plant Protection in 1933, because everything had gone, no side painters.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a luxury.
Yeah.
In 33, I went over to Plant Protection, and I got started furthering my education into law.
Okay.
Took 2 years to finish that. Well, you walk in there and you go upstairs, all you have is a flashlight, no electric lights, flashlights. And we stored our patterns in there.
Oh, okay. That was the
The
old
old
pattern
wood
storage
patterns, you know,
building.
for
Yeah.
fenders and so
Yeah.
on. And the old patterns going as far back as our runabouts.
Oh my.
And our dies for that too, for the fenders.
Yeah.
The little one-piece fenders.
Yeah.
They had all that, they kept all of that. They had all of that.
Isn't that so?
Then we had another, just a small thing. It wasn't much bigger than this room.
Oh yeah.
At, of course, 40 and 34th wasn't there.
There, yeah.
That was open field.
Yeah.
But this sat there, and because it was the foot of, getting down to the foot of Pine Street. See?
Yeah.
That's Pine Street,
Mm-hmm.
between 34 and 40. And it had the sewer grading there, see? So they could dump their water into the sewer. That's where our laundry was. And yard maintenance took care of that.
Uh-huh.
And what they laundered was shop towels
All right.
and aprons.
Okay.
Now, nearly all your machinists then that operate any type of machine at all wore an apron
All right.
back in those days.
Yeah.
You don't see them now.
No?
Over polishing plating they have.
Yeah.
Well, that was a busy place. That little building didn't have a number. Well, then one, first, I'll tell you what Fisher Body
Okay.
took in. They took in, they added on some.
Okay.
They added on building 2178.
All right.
They had 2178. That's where they built the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had building 26. 77, and the top portion of Building 20, and their cafeteria in the basement.
All right.
The hiring was all done by Miller in our employment office.
For the Fisher Body
For
people?
both two.
Uh-huh.
Both
All right.
places. I worked at Fisher Body for a little while when I first got to Lansing.
All right.
Wet sanding. I didn't like that. Boy, that was horrible.
What did you do there? How did you do that?
How did I do it?
Yeah.
Wet sanding is with water and pumice
Yeah.
and sanding your body down. I didn't like it. Well, then...
Bill, how, the wet sanding, did you wear boots?
Oh, yeah, you did, or you'd be all wet.
Did you wear
Someone
aprons?
did, someone went barefooted.
Barefooted?
Yeah.
Did you wear like a raincoat or?
No, you get all wet, and that's all it was. I done wet sanding, spot sanding, dry sanding, and
Okay.
I didn't like it.
Whereabouts in the building were you doing that? Do you remember?
We're doing that on the second floor of Building 26.
Okay.
Second floor of Building 26.
What were they doing in like building 21 and 78? What was going
That's where
on?
they built the body.
Oh, okay.
Then they shot them off guard,
All right.
or they were painted
And
and
where was
sanded.
where was the paint shop part itself?
I don't know.
Okay.
I never seen that.
All right.
But anyhow, they had tile floors.
All right.
I remember that big tile. In fact, they were there yet when I left.
Oh.
Yeah. What wasn't covered with steel plates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we got started into the new buildings.
Bill, wait a
Building.
minute. Can I back you up again?
Okay.
Where did we make the Viking body?
That was made by Fisher Body.
Right there also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they built all the closed-in bodies.
Yeah.
Uh,
How about the Viking engine?
it was all made right here.
Okay.
Fisher Body. We didn't have the facilities.
Yeah.
Olds didn't have the facilities in it.
Yeah.
To do all of that. Plant wasn't very big.
Yeah.
Well, the first building I went into, one of the new buildings, was 62, the main office,
All right.
and gold leaf letters on all the executives' doors.
Oh, yes.
And that took in quite a lot of doors.
Yes.
Some of them I had to take the door down, or I'd have the carpenters take the glass out. A fellow named Art Cole started off, he was a sergeant in Plant Protection. He started off as the attendant in the lobby.
Okay. The receptionist kind
Yeah.
of like. Uh-huh.
And he sold cigarettes and peanuts, candy, there in the lobby.
Okay.
And he paid for his farm from the money he got from selling that stuff. He had a large family. I know they used to sit in later years, say in the 1930s.
Yeah.
He would sit in this old 1910 Limited with all his kids.
Oh, yeah.
He'd fill it up.
Uh-huh.
It's quite a big car.
Yes, it was.
All the old timers used to get into that, you know. Into the old Scout,
Yeah.
Johnny Weaver. He was a 50-year man too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get anything out of Weaver. I used to talk with all them old fellows. James Stewart.
Okay.
He was the foreman of the motor test. James Stewart drove them old cars, the old Scout vintage. He tested them. He tested all them cars, and he also took test drives out to various places into the country, you know. He went down south on a test drive.
Oh, yeah.
I used to sit there and talk with him till I had to get back to work. Well, he was there for a long time and Jim lived to a ripe old age.
Uh-huh.
He was still around there for a good many years. Abel Roost, he hired in just before Harvey Olds retired.
Okay. Okay. Abel Roost.
Abel Roost,
Yeah.
he hired in just before Harvey Olds sold out and retired in a semi-retirement.
Mm-hmm.
He went up north. He had a place up there, but he was only there a very short time, and the powers to be here in Lansing talked him into starting another car,
Right.
and he got tied in a reel. You didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And he retired,
Yeah.
went up there.
Yeah.
Well, enough of that. We're talking about Oldsmobile.
Right.
Abel stayed in Oldsmobile for 50 years from the time he hired in. And he started painting them early cars by hand. It was
Okay.
all painted by hand.
With a
then.
brush?
Yeah, with a brush.
Okay.
In fact, in 1929, I happened to be over in an old building 10.
Yeah.
That was a real old building
Yes.
where McIntosh was handling our salvage. And I see this whole barrel full of old camel hair and bear hair paintbrushes.
Mm-hmm.
Nice ones. So I told him back, I says, I'd like to have some of them to use in my work over there, because once in a while, Frank Elwell, the plant engineer, brings in a desk or something for me to refinish.
Mm-hmm.
I done some of that too. And I says, these are nice flowing brushes. I'd like to have some for varnishing. Oh no, can't do it. He says, these have got to be sold to a dealer in Detroit. He always was that way, selling everything in Detroit. I went back and see Mr. Elwell and told him about it. He says, I'll give you a requisition. You go and get all you want. He says, never mind Detroit.
Uh-huh.
So I went over and I got a bucket full of them brushes. And I had them for years. And finally, Bob Holt, who was working in the plant layout under Elwell,
Mm-hmm.
wanted me to paint up some signs with gold leaf lettering on them. He was a woman chaser. He was single, and I didn't blame him. He wanted me to paint some signs. He had these girls' names on his bungalows that he was building up on the lake.
Oh, my.
And so I said, I gotta have some brushes. I said, I can't take these out of here. He says, I'll get you some. He says, I'll give you a pass, take them home. So he went and got me another handful of them. I had them brushes around here that we use them for varnishing.
Uh-huh.
I had them until probably 25, 30 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Finally wore out.
Oh, yeah, beautiful brush.
And, well, as I say, the thing went on. That Building 62
Yeah.
was another one that I got into. Carl Brantle, the brother of Bud,
Yes.
was the superintendent.
See, that was the
That
warehouse?
was the warehouse.
All
That was
right.
the warehouse. I had a pass model machine shop.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Rodemaster was the foreman of the machine shop. And then, of course, is where Abel Roast was working,
All right.
finishing the old fenders.
Before that building was built, Bill, where was the past model storage and all of that then?
That was back in the plant. They had their stuff stored into 27B,
All right.
and the warehouse, it just wasn't much of anything of a warehouse.
All right.
Some of it was down there underneath the office where storage units were.
All right. Bill, can you I'm going to interrupt you again here. Can you describe the old original administration building a little bit? The one with the pointy roof? What was in it?
That, you mean the old
Yeah, on
administration?
Division Street, the one that was on the corner of like
Yeah,
Division and
yeah.
Elm.
That's the main office,
What was in there?
on the second floor.
All
That's
right.
where they were. Well, everybody was there.
Okay.
There's where the general manager, the production
All right.
manager, and everything was in there. And it was all black walnut furniture. Oh, it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And again, that guy from Detroit got that. He got that too. Well, maybe it was a good thing. He'd buy it up in a hole.
Yeah.
But, oh, I would have bought some of that.
Was the plant engineer in there also?
Oh, no, the plant engineer and all the maintenance department, plant engineer was up in what they call Old Building 6
All right.
on the second floor.
Oh, okay.
And Building 6, it was just a little tramway
Yeah.
from Building 6 into the building where I was working
Okay.
and where all the other maintenance departments were.
Okay.
In Building 6 was the tin shop and the yard maintenance
All
on the
right.
first floor. And, well, they didn't have much of anything. It was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
yard maintenance stored their tools down there. And John DeMeyer had his office there.
Oh, yeah.
He was there then. He had charge of the,
When you came into the office building, there was that pointy roofed section in the front, the little peaked front.
yeah,
What was inside of that?
nothing.
Nothing. Stairway?
There was nothing up there.
Just, okay.
It was just a cupola like
Uh-huh.
you have on a house sometimes.
I'll be darned.
Or like you got on the top of a church.
Yeah, yeah. Was that a 3-story building?
2-story.
2-story.
Two-story.
Okay.
But I didn't do much lettering in there
All right.
for the simple reason they was going to tear it down.
Yeah.
They intended to move. And of course, Building 60, they got out of that just quick as they could. You know, them 2 years of 1928, 1929, they were exceptional in many cases. It was that huge building program, and for the first time, we had a big hiring program.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was a booming. But you know, all the employees then, there was a different attitude than you've ever seen since.
Huh.
Of course, there was no unions,
Yes.
and I'm not criticizing
No,
unions.
appreciate that.
Not a bit.
Yeah.
But everybody, no matter where you went to get a job, you had to have experience.
Okay.
And Miller would come out there on a Monday morning, and they would want a spot welder with experience. Everything had to be experienced.
Mm-hmm.
He might call for anything, you know, along the line of production, but you had to have experience.
Oh, yeah.
Car assembly, experience. Painting, experience. Well, now the fellows had to have a job. So they said they had experience. And he would have Vic Brown take them back, see the foreman, and let the foreman see what kind of experience they had.
Oh, yeah.
The foreman was one of them good Joes too. Now all of them foremans were. They'd take the man out, put him on the job, and the fellows all around him would help him and show him how to operate.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, it was the most friendly spirit you ever see in a plant, and the entire plant. It was that way. At the time that I hired in, Elwell asked me if I could do speedball work for fine lettering.
Okay.
I never had. And very few sign painters ever did.
Yeah.
And I told him I've had experience just about every line. I did because I had worked with my father off and on, and he was an artist and a sign painter too. And we used to paint billboards and
Oh yeah.
signs of buildings.
Yeah.
But I never got held that fine. Well, the reason for that was we had Hubert Griffith of Art and Sharp. He was in there, but he wasn't working for Olds. He was working for an advertising company.
Oh.
I think it was Brothers, DP Brothers.
DP Brother, yeah, that was our ad agency.
Yeah. That's the way he got started in there, doing the work for them. And in fact, when we'd have the showing of our new cars, he would take off and go with them, see?
Oh yeah.
Claiming he had to do some of their lettering and everything. Well, when he did, I had to do some of the Art and Sharp work.
Oh.
And I also done the work for exhibit and display.
All right.
So he gave me a book, told me to sit down at home and start going after it. Well, I did, but I never liked it. And I just held it up and left it for him when he got back.
Yeah.
Well, Building 62, when they got it done, plant engineer called me in the office, Elwell, and he says, the advertising department wanted me to paint a sign for them. He says, can you do it? Well, I says, I've been painting signs ever since I've been here. Well, he says, this is a different one. They wanted a sign on the roof of Building 62.
Okay.
That went the whole length of the building and the whole width of it.
Wow.
Oldsmobile. All them were big letters.
Yeah.
And he says, I'll have plant layout. That would have been Bob Holt,
Yeah.
so on. Go over there and lay it out for you, and then you go ahead and paint it. I said, okay. So I did. The largest sign ever painted in Lansing. Well, that was for viewers riding overhead on airplanes.
Yeah.
For them to see here was the Oldsmobile plant, see? Well, I got it painted. And a couple weeks later, the advertising manager and somebody else went for a ride in an airplane to fly over Lansing to see how the sign looked. Gee whiz, they made several trips back and forth over the building.
Yeah.
And the next thing I knew, along comes one of the boys from engineering and said, Mr. Elwell wants to see you. So I went over to Elwell's office. He says, you told me you painted all kinds of signs, been doing it for a long time. Yep. He says, I wished I could take you up on a plane for you to take a look at that sign. I said, what's the matter with it? He says, you didn't spell it right.
Oh no.
I says, well, left the I out. Now the plant layout done that. I didn't pay attention to it. I was just painting.
Yeah.
They laid it out chalk lines. Left the I out.
Oh my Lord.
Anyhow, they left the sign there, and finally they started building penthouses and
Yeah.
elevator shafts and everything up there. So went up there, covered the letters off. Yep, left the I off.
Oh, my.
Well, I'll tell you, as I mentioned there, Bill Mahoney, he handled the type clerks, supervised the type clerk. Red Cherry, type study. He always had a stopwatch in his hand.
Really? Okay.
A fellow by the name of, I'll think of it in a few minutes. All these names, you know,
I know. Takes a little while.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, he was the foreman. He was the foreman on assembly line. He worked with the Oldsmobile baseball team.
Oh.
One of the best baseball teams in the country.
Okay.
They were good, if not better than some of our large professional teams.
Okay.
It was an advertising gimmick too.
Were they Oldsmobile employees or other?
Yep.
They were all Oldsmobile employees?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I used to be able to name them all off to you, because sometimes I'd go out and play scrub with them, you know, on practice.
Who did they play?
Huh?
Who did they play?
Oh, they played every city had a baseball club.
All right.
I know Ionia had one.
Yeah.
I lived there. Grand Rapids had them. And they played the best there was.
Mm-hmm.
And they were an outstanding club.
Hmm. Was this there when you came, Bill? Were they playing baseball?
They were phasing out.
Phasing out, okay.
Phasing out.
All right.
A lot of the supervision, as I said before, Carl Dobbins was handled as press metal,
Mm-hmm.
and John Dykstra was assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Dobbins didn't stay long, and then of course John Dykstra took over.
Okay.
John retired after the war, World War II, and went to Ford.
Mm-hmm.
He held a big job there.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
He did. Yeah.
And Joe French had the axle plant, and he went with Dykstra to Ford's.
Okay. Bill, in the late 20s, where was the axle plant?
The axle plant was in, it went into building 21
All right.
after Fisher Body left.
Oh, okay.
1935.
All right.
They had that strike. Fisher Body had their strike, and the axle plant was a portion of 27B
Oh.
in the east end of it.
Okay.
The plant was really congested,
Yeah.
but there was.
Yeah.
They did large one all right.
Okay.
But unfortunately, in 1929 came the stock market crash.
Yeah.
In 1930, everything went down to 3 days a week.
Okay.
They still work 9 hours a day,
They did.
3
All right.
days a week.
All right.
And it didn't get back on its feet until 1933, in the summer of 1933, when NRA came into effect under Franklin Roosevelt.
All right.
Then they cut the hours, 8-hour day, and where I was making 62 cents an hour, a specialized work,
Yeah.
I was wound up making 40 cents an hour.
Oh, wow.
$16 a week. Well, we shouldn't advertise that. I like Oldsmobile, just like Ellen
sure.
Early does.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's maybe just a few bad points.
Oh,
But there always was, it always was that every year was a better car.
yeah.
and sell more of them. And they didn't seem to have any trouble doing it. They could sell more than what they could make.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And where we used to be on just a day shift, I'm telling you, at 6 o'clock at night, and I know because, as I say, I worked at Plant Protection there as a patrolman for a while. I had to walk a beat. We'd close Elm Street gate at 6 o'clock at night, start the beat. Now you wouldn't see a soul.
Is that right?
All there was, 2 electricians and 2 steam checkers.
Huh.
They had to work in pairs.
Yeah.
The supervision wouldn't permit it
Yeah.
because it was dangerous, especially for electricians.
Uh-huh.
And that's all you'd see in the plant. Well, dark, just a little night light, a small bulb like that one, scattered here or there, maybe 3 in a building.
Oh, my.
You had that little steel guards that sat up about a foot off the floor, and you'd run into one of them with your shin and it'd cut your,
Yeah.
oh, you'd cut your shin wide open.
Yeah.
It was bad business. We got rid of them. We got different kinds of guards.
How did you get into plant protection, Bill?
Transferred in.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
They didn't need sign painters anymore.
Okay.
They didn't need anything much.
All right.
Anything that was that wasn't necessary was eliminated. Just like they always General Motors always done.
Yeah.
Eliminate all the dead wood.
Yeah.
And then I figured while I was there that that's where I took up law, studied law.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
In 1935, I had a talk with the chief, who was an ex-state police officer,
Who was that?
and he came in under a 10-year contract,
Okay.
$350 a month. And at the end of 10 years, they held him to the contract.
Isn't that?
That's all he got, was $350 a
Isn't that
month.
something?
He used to call me in the office, and he pointed his finger at me. You know that this past month you made more money than I did. Well, I was a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
Well, so through the legal department in Detroit, I took up law.
Okay.
They helped me.
All right.
And I'd be here till midnight, working, studying, you know. Then I'd have to go write an examination once a month. Then I went out to the state police, took up everything in crime prevention and studying, and especially interrogations. That was my chief stock and trade,
Okay.
was interrogations
Yeah.
and handwriting analysis. So I had fire inspection for about a year over there. Then special investigator. Boy, I sure got messed up in an awful lot of stuff. I never knew in the morning what I was going to get into at night.
Uh-huh.
Boy, they'd call me back over on the assembly line. The conveyor would break down. Somebody'd stick a drift pin in the
Mm-hmm.
conveyor chain. She'd snap when she made the turn on the turn wheel. I'd have to get over there, round up the man that done it, take him into the office, have him write out a suspension.
Mm-hmm.
No man was ever immediately fired by a supervisor. They couldn't fire a man. We'll say Ken Rex, the last superintendent while I was there. He'd like to, but he couldn't. All he could do was recommend.
Mm-hmm.
Then he'd go to labor relations. Then labor relations would study it, board, of course by that time the union would become involved. And then Labor Relations would have to send it up to the general manager to approve the discharge. That's where the way it worked. Probably the way it works right now too. You can suspend him and send him home in an indefinite suspension. Superintendent can do that. But then they tell him to either come back to Labor Relations or stay home until he heard from him. So I used to, well, about the only thing that I would do if it was on a weekend, let's say, no superintendent there. I would talk with the man, get the statements, write up the report, and send him home, and I'd tell him the same thing. Stay there until he heard from Labor Relations the next day or on the first of the week. And I'd take his badge away from him. And then I'd take it over and give it to the superintendent and show him the report. And then he'd go ahead and they'd write to Labor Relations. Of course, getting into a lot of police work here because, I got into everything.
Yeah.
There's some times that you get to investigating something like Harold Metzel called me over to his office, showed me some letters he received on what was going on at the forge plant. The forge plant acted like they were a separate division all by themselves.
Yeah.
That they didn't, nobody at Oldsmobile had anything to do with them. Well, we sure did. Well, at this time, I talked with Mr. Messel, showed me these letters, and he said there's something going on over there awful big. He says, I wish you could get into it. He says that don't talk to the chief over there. I said, I don't talk to you much anyhow. Because most of my work came through the personnel department or from the superintendents. And I'd report to them what I had found. Well, I went over there. That was just one case. There's been a lot of them.
Yeah.
The employees were smashing up our spot welders. That was a lot of money and they'd done that on a whole lineup. This was running into thousands and thousands of dollars. I forget the figure they gave me there. One time, well over $100,000 on one weekend. So I got over there to investigate that, and I talked with several men, and I got statements of what had happened and who was doing it. 2 men were doing it. But the others were sympathizing with them, and but they gave me the dope. They didn't like that kind of business.
Yeah.
And wound up, we had brought the superintendent of that over from Flint to handle that department. And he brings an hourly rate employee with him and makes him the foreman of this welding line. And wound up, I put in 3 days over there, had a terrible argument with the superintendent. He wanted me to hand all the reports over to him. I said, no, I can't do that. I said, they go directly to Mr. Messel. And I went over and I laid the cards on the table for him. The superintendent and his foreman went back to Flint. They sent him right back there. And these fellows that actually done it got suspended. They were brought back after 3 months, and after a year, they was reinstated. Now, we've done that with an awful lot of employees, working with the union and management. If I objected, they wouldn't have hired me.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of that. The same as every employee that came in, I screened them. I had probably one of the best setups because I worked with the state police, and I could get all the information I wanted,
Oh, yeah.
and I furnished them with all the information they
Okay.
wanted.
Uh-huh.
And I had a good screen job for all of central Michigan.
Mhm.
So it was really worthwhile, because here was a boy come in with a recommendation from the mayor here in Lansing that we hire this one boy. And I refused to hire him. I had all the information on him. He was the boy that set fire to the state building, and they lost the 2 top stores.
Oh,
And I would not permit him to hire anybody
yeah.
that had committed arson. All of our employees would be thrown out of work.
Yeah.
So, little jobs like felonies, we'd overlook that.
Yeah.
After all, you couldn't hold it against a man all his life,
No.
so we'd give him a job.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay any special attention to them when they were on the job, any more than I would a man that
Yeah.
was attending church regularly every week. So, you don't harass them.
Yeah.
You never mention it to them. It was a good job. I'd get called to Milford. I'd get called to Flint. I'd get called to Detroit.
Uh-huh.
I'd come home every night. I went to bed 9 o'clock. And just as sure as the world during the week, I'd get called for it. Some things were simple and should have been taken care of. I had to slip over there. I'd do it sometimes twice a night. Sometimes during lunch period at night, and then again right after midnight when the boys were going home.
Wedge of 431 Westmoreland, Lansing, Michigan. The interview was conducted by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center on January 25th, 1990 in Bill's home on Westmoreland. This is tape number 2 of 3 tapes. Okay.
There are more methods of stealing. As you know, the fellow that took my place, he didn't believe in what I was doing. He said all that problems should be placed back in the superintendent's lap.
Oh.
Let him take care of them. I said, then there isn't much sense in me trying to break you in. I said, you're here for 2 years, breaking in on this job. You don't want anything to do with what I'm doing. You think I'm all wrong. Yep. Well, I says, I guess you'll probably get by all right. Well, he did. He did. He got by some way, but I used to be out studying all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'd watch our things when they come in, spark plugs, for instance.
Yeah.
From the time they got off a truck until they got into the crib, it was locked up. Then I'd find out who all had the keys to the lock.
Oh, yeah.
Trucks that were coming in. You'd be surprised. Our fellows would catch them at the gate, of course. They didn't have the opportunity to do what I would do, see. I had plenty of time.
Sure.
I took it anyhow. Some of them trucks had a false front. They could look a whole gob of material into them. Now they have done it. Gods of batteries, for instance. Whole god of them. Apparently, here's that false front.
Yeah.
When the truck was being unloaded, that was taken down, laid up against the side of the truck. You wouldn't even notice it, you know.
Yeah.
But then, when they pulled the shenanigan, that was always at night. And material handling would be taking care of everything there, but it usually wound up with just one man unloading that truck, and that's when the shenanigans start.
Uh-huh.
So I caught them, and there were things I'd check on. I'd tell this fellow that took my place, he said, he didn't have time to do that. He says, let the superintendent of material handling check it. Another thing, they'd have a false bottom underneath the bed of the truck,
Yeah.
and they'd slide stuff in there. Now, they'd slide sheet metal especially, and copper. Copper, boy, a lot of copper.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd pass all this information on to GM in Detroit, and they in turn would notify all plant protection areas in the divisions.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd use that information. Now, I also got some from them, but it was already passé.
Yeah.
I had already, because I'd been working on it so long. Same way fellows carried stuff out. Strapping it to their body.
Really?
Wearing a big coat. When you see a man with an oversized coat, you had a suspicion something was wrong. Out to be going, these tape players, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost a lot of them.
Oh, my goodness.
Gee whiz, by the time I'd get to work on it, we had lost 35 or 40, maybe all within a week. And they were going out. Well, then I'd have to go after outsiders. Another deal would be our drivers out of the engineering building.
Okay. Car drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe this. After they'd run the motors on the motor test, they'd bring the worn out motor, well, it wasn't entirely worn out, it was still usable, over to the salvage department. And they would sell the motor maybe $300, $350.
Mm-hmm.
But only paperwork was in the driver's hands. Well, found it one night. I'd do it any old time at all, because if that's your job, try it. The more you can learn, the better it is. Found him. He went over and back of the Union Hall, over off of South Washington Avenue.
Yeah.
And here was a guy waiting for him. And they took the motor off our little pickup,
Yeah.
put it on the pickup of this other truck. Well, I knew who the driver was. I wasn't concerned. Followed this other one.
Oh, yeah.
He went to a gas station out between Lansing and Hope. So I came back, told the superintendent over there I'd like to talk to that fellow to bring him over. And I says, this is serious, don't tell him so, but you bring him. So he did. I says, you can stay if you want to. And I told us what I had seen. The guy got $150 for him. for the motor. Now, this is one instance. I'm just using this as an example.
Sure.
We had so many things. I'd follow the drivers of cars. They'd take a new car out of there, I'd follow it. Down all of the cars.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. I didn't have time. I'm only one man. Follow, they go right straight home. They'd take it out of their car, take it into the house. I'd wait till they got back. I'd talk to them. I'd tell them they had the choice. I would take the complaint, turn it over to the Lansing police, have them pick him up, take him down there for questioning, and get a search warrant, go out, search his house, and bring him back. Well, they didn't want that, so
Yeah.
they didn't want their family to know.
No.
Well, anyhow, we go on with a little more supervision. They had Frank King was the superintendent of the motor plant.
Okay.
Frank Hager was the assistant under him. Then eventually Frank Hager took over on the engine parts plant, which was building 38. Right in line with 28, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That later was, well, that was the engine parts plant. But it wasn't there at that time. I gave you the names of the paint plant and also of the sheet metal, also of the warehouse. Frank Yellop handled the driveway and garage, or the test cars had the garage at the engineering building.
Where was the engineering building?
Huh?
Where was the engineering building when you came?
They was in that garage underneath the office.
Oh, okay.
Then they moved to building 34,
All right.
and from there they went over to 64.
Yeah. All right.
You know, that used to be a dump in their city dump,
A dump?
where building 64 and 62 is.
Yeah.
All of that was dump.
Oh.
They was digging for a footing in building 64 when they built the building.
Yeah.
And they went down 20 feet, started digging up old sewing machines and stoves and stuff. It was in that dump. Shows you how low it was. That used to flood. That used to flood throughout the area.
I'll be there.
And where building 28 is,
Yeah.
even up in the 40s and 50s, we used to have a flood there. We had a parking lot there.
Mm-hmm.
It was Scott's Playfield before that.
Yeah.
And that used to flood clear up to the building.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
There was awful low land in there. Used to be fairgrounds too, down in there.
Okay.
And then they give it up and had the fairgrounds out to Waverly Road there.
Yeah.
They used to ride a nice pleasure boat up the river to Waverly.
Yeah. Okay.
The fairgrounds.
Uh-huh.
Well, it was a river park.
Yeah.
Of course, Bud Battle, he jumped around from all kinds of jobs. Mike Meadow took over from him, and then he went out to the main office. He was a personnel director for a while. Then Red Cherry took the job for a couple of months. That job seemed to be a headache. Everybody had a crack at it. Then we got a fellow in from New York. He was a personnel director for a while. Lee Witter was the director of salary personnel.
Salary, yeah.
Well, not when not
No.
those
Yeah.
early years.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think sometimes Olds picnics. You ought to have been there when we had the Olds picnics back in 28, 29.
Okay. Where did you have those? Where were they held?
Out, they called it Park Lake then. It was Lake Lansing.
Oh, Pine Lake.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Lake Lansing.
Yeah.
That dance hall out in the middle of the lake had a big building built up right in the middle of the lake.
On stilts?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, anyhow, Olds, they'd have the picnic during the middle of the week. And they'd take over the park. That was quite a, place then. And we'd go in the morning about 9, 10 o'clock, but you had to bring your own lunch, picnic lunch.
Okay.
We'd bring our own picnic lunch and sit in the park there and eat it, wander around, and then after dinner, baseball game. We'd watch the baseball game. Of course, your kids all had free rides, same as they do now, or as they did when we had these. And 5 o'clock, the balloon ascension. The balloon ascension. Kids would watch them fill the balloon, you know, with hot air. And we'd watch that till it came down. Then we'd eat. Now we had hot dogs and everything like that, see, that they'd serve. Then the dance hall. Then a pavilion there. And we'd have a dance until later, and then the fireworks. Now that was the picnics. And I'm telling you, they were dillies. You'd be awful tired by the time you got home, but boy, that was really a picnic. Used to rent a canoe, go out into the lake, and watch the fireworks. You had to be careful because that's where.
Yeah, the land.
Yeah. Yeah, that were the days.
Were those picnics for both salary and hourly people?
Everybody.
Everybody.
Went. Everybody went. There wasn't many hourly employees, but there had to be some because we built up quite a few cars.
You're making something, right?
Yeah, everybody. A lot of them didn't go.
Yeah.
A lot of people just. Well, a lot of them didn't have the facilities to get out there.
Yeah.
Now we had interurbans then.
Okay.
The interurban run from Lansing out to the lake.
All right.
In fact, that interurban had a short journey anyhow. It only applied between St. John's and Jackson.
Oh, all right.
And they used to haul our motor blocks in and then switch over onto the Grand Trunk there, siding,
Oh.
and wheel on down and unload them on the dock of Building 28.
Oh.
They used to leave them sit there, they was rusty, and I used to ask, why in the world do you let them sit out here and rust like that? They said to cure.
Oh, yeah.
It's a curing process. And well, then they'd also bring in our wheels. And they'd pull up to our dock in front of Building 20. That was a big, high dock, not so high. Came up to about where the doors of the interurban were.
Okay.
And then they'd have a chute there and unload their wheels and they'd go down into the basement of Building 20.
So they actually drive the interurban car right on the regular railroad track.
Yeah. Yeah, but this here was a trolley track
Oh, yeah.
that they used coming in from the gate up to unload the wheels.
Oh, it came in from the north end.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it came in on the regular, used the regular streetcar tracks.
Yeah. Was there a streetcar there in Olds Avenue at that time?
Streetcars?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, streetcars run until in the, 31, 30, 30.
Okay.
31 or 32. And they discontinued them.
Where did that come right into the plant?
Not streetcars did.
All right.
They'd go down William Street
Okay.
and then down to Buffalo, and then they'd turn there and come back down Olds Avenue in front of the gate,
Oh, yeah.
and the employees would ride home. But them streetcars are loaded.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of them didn't go to the picnics. They didn't have the
Yeah,
facilities
didn't have
to
a
get
car. Yeah.
there. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, something. Yeah, they discontinued them. The Depression raised the tickets on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Do you remember who the plant protection chief was, Bill, when you first came to work?
Where it was?
Who was the plant protection chief?
Oh, Fillmore Tyson.
Tyson, okay.
He had retired from a Louisville, Kentucky fire department.
Oh, all right.
He was the chief of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they got in touch with him or if he got in touch with them, but he hired in the middle 20s.
All right.
And the plant protection office was in the building underneath that water tower we had.
Oh, yeah.
There was another job I had when I came, was painting, lettering that water tower. I told Elwell, I said, you should get a fellow that is familiar with painting smokestacks and what the other to do that. He says, you're getting 62 cents an hour. He says, so you do it. He says, these other painters ain't getting as much as you are. I says, they'll have to paint the tower though. All I'll do is the lettering. He says, that's all right. So 2 old men, one of his name was Frank Catt, and the other's name was Frank Witchell. And they climbed up that ladder, I'll never forget it. Gee whiz, they hated to go up.
Oh, yeah.
And then throw a rope down, you tie a 5-gallon paint bucket to the rope, and they'd haul it up there and paint. Well, the question was, who was going to paint the roof of that tower? They couldn't do it. I says, all right now, but I'm going to fasten this myself, and the reason before that was they had started painting the bridges of the smokestack. That's pretty high in the air at that time. And they fixed up a scaffold for me to be on. There was nothing, only a plank and a loop at each end of the cable. And I started on that thing and it flipped right over with me. Well, I had a safety rope there, and I hung on that for dear life. And I got back off and I said, we're not going to paint the bushing now. I did it later, but I fixed my own scaffold. So I swung a rope. We had a pole about that big around. Sat on top of that roof there, you know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I threw a loop before that, and then I pulled myself up, made a couple of loops down here to step on, and just let that push me around.
Oh, yeah.
I think as I painted.
Okay.
But that was the first time we had the water tower painted.
That was a tricky job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What about the, during the 30s, Bill, the work stoppages, did that affect us?
oh yes, it affected it because things were at a stalemate.
Yeah.
People couldn't get into the banks to get money to buy a car. Had the bank holidays, you know. The banks were closed. They had to wait for them to get straightened out. So it went down 3 days a week. They still made some cars.
Okay.
Went down to 3 days a week. That put a grip in your tail, you know. You take a capital city like Lansing. It's the last one to lower rent. Lansing lowered it late, and was about 1932 that they started renting a house somewhere still reasonable. Well, you could get a house then for about $8 or $10 a month. But gee whiz, that's all you could afford too. But your wages are cut more than it had.
Yeah.
The 9-hour day was cut out. 3 days a week, 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it was rough times, but you could be thankful it still was working. Then they started going again. Then the unions started working on them.
Why did the union come?
They started out about 1935. Fisher Body, inside the plant,
Mm-hmm.
it was the first one. Bob Hardy, who had formerly been the foreman of the tin shop, that's where they made smoke stacks and so on,
Yeah,
also made safety guards for machines, you know.
okay.
So he was also a safety man. That's all it was, the safety part of that. Well, they came under the plant engineer, he did. So plant engineer had made him the chief of plant protection, and they demoted Mr. Tyson to a patrolman. Now Bob Cook came in as chief of plant protection later,
All
in
right.
1950, or 1935.
Yeah.
And he felt sorry for the old fellow, and he gave him a job at a little gate there, or a little shanty, by Building 62.
Okay.
And he stayed there until he retired.
All right.
I know smoking was cut out one time in the plant. Was you there then when they did that?
No.
Oh, no smoking inside the plant. Once you got through the gate, you doused your cigarette. No smoking in the plant by anybody.
Mm.
Probably in the main office is all right,
Yeah.
or some of the other offices. And Fillmore Tyson was the only plant protection man that was permitted to smoke. He was old. He was about close to 80,
Oh my gracious.
and he'd sit there, little pouchy stomach, you know,
Yeah.
and smoking, and a pipe. Ashes all over,
Oh my God.
all over his uniform. But Cook says, keep your mouth shut to him. He told the sergeant's son. He said, keep your mouth shut to him. He says, the old boy is just staying here until he wants to retire. And he says he could stay as long as he wants. He was pretty old when he retired.
Could people work until they didn't have to retire at 65 then?
No, there was no,
Uh-huh.
there was no age limit.
Okay.
The unions brought that up,
Okay.
that on a retirement plan, see, which was nice.
Yes.
I'm glad they did. 65 there was a little leeway there.
Yeah.
You could go into 68. Well, we had men on the plant protection department at that time, some of them were up in their 70s.
Mm.
And old Fillmore was the oldest one of the group. They had one fire inspector when I hired him, Austin Cherry. Everybody knew Cherry. Cherry, he was always talking about women. He never went out with anybody else except his wife, but he would talk. Anything to talk. Well, he was down in Building 27A. This was when I was on plant protection.
Mm-hmm.
He was down in 27A, and he had a brand new pair of shoes. And one of the women, she was a big blonde. She was working there, and she got to talking mushy with Cherry, and she'd like to go out with him because he looked like he was a real man, you know. And while she was doing that, the other woman was painting his shoes red.
Really?
With lacquer.
Oh my gracious.
Oh boy. And
Did
he
he
never
know
noticed
it?
it. So finally, they got through with him, and he left and went on about his work. And he never noticed his shoes till he got back in the squad room, and one of the boys says, "What'd you do to your shoes?" Red. As you couldn't wipe it off, you couldn't.
No.
Oh, they used to have a lot of fun with him.
Mhm.
Well,
Let's see, Bill, the 35 or 36 strike.
yeah, well, when Fisher had theirs,
Yeah, did that flow over into
Yeah.
Oldsmobile?
no, that didn't go into Oldsmobile, it was
Okay.
just Fisher then.
Yeah, all right.
When Fisher had theirs, now this is a little bit of history there. At that time, working the night shift, you'd have to carry a gas gun.
A
Now,
gas
I
gun?
got one over here that I
Yeah.
bought when
Yeah.
they discontinued them. It was about that long,
Okay, foot and a
and
half.
just a round pearl,
Yeah,
and then the other end, it took a gas shell about the size of a shotgun shell.
all right.
And all you had to do was flip a catch with your thumb,
Yeah.
and you shoot a wad of tear gas.
Oh,
We carried them at night on patrolling plant.
okay.
Well, anyhow, when it appeared that Fisher was going to have this strike, Bob Hardy, that's 1935 now,
All right.
Bob Hardy, the chief, ordered a bunch of tear gas bombs, about that big around.
Ooh, 4 inches.
It had a little chain to them, and you just grab a hold of that catch on the end of it and heave it, see.
Oh,
He ordered a bunch of them. He ordered more shells for the tear gas guns. And he had quite a lot of equipment there. Then he got a great big box full of maple billy clubs. And on his own, without any information from the management or without discussing it with them, he made us stop every car at the gate. And they was all coming in Division Street gate
yeah.
for Fisher Body. See, cars all parked inside the plant,
Oh,
up
did
against
they?
the buildings and all over.
Oh, okay.
And he stopped all the employees. Well, now some of the old employees too.
Right.
We had to stop them all, make them show their badge. Them employees had never been asked to show a badge. They took the badge, took it home, you know.
Yeah.
They never was asked to show it. In fact, they didn't even check them at the gate. They just waved them on, waved trucks in and out. I'm telling you, it was wide open. They called them watchmen then.
Yeah.
And that's just exactly what they were. I don't know what they were.
Okay, the watchman.
Yeah. Now, the old days of the watchmen. But here they were, lined up down Division Street to Main Street, and from there on down to Washington Avenue.
Oh, wow.
Every car was stopped, some of them would have 2 or 3 employees in it. And each one, and they didn't have no badge. We couldn't let them in. Then they'd have to swing, turn around there, and go back out or go home. And when every car was going home,
Oh, boy.
there wasn't a man that had a badge. Here we were starting, I think probably they were going to work at 7 o'clock then probably. It was almost 8 o'clock and nobody was at work. Gee, the plant engineer and the general manager all were down, coming tearing down there to see what the trouble was. Bob Hardy went to Elwell's office, got his final check, and went home. That was the end of his job.
Really?
Yeah.
He got fired.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they had a fellow by the name of Bob Benson, who was a clerk for Harry Beeman, who
Okay.
was superintendent of the millwrights and machine repair. He was the clerk there, and Elwell assigned him to to be chief of plant protection and safety.
Oh,
And with orders to never again stop any employee at the gate and ask for his badge.
wow.
So it was still stayed wide open.
Yeah.
You see, they used to bring employees into work, talk with the superintendent, he'd give them a job. And then he'd take them over to the employment office and have them fixed up on their paperwork and bring them back to work. I did. I brought a lot of fellows in.
Uh-huh.
I brought three different painters in. I brought some electricians in.
Okay.
You just walk right in. That's
Just
all there was
walked
to
right
it.
through the gate.
Wide open. Well, if an officer isn't on his feet right now, they still can come in. But I think they watch them pretty close now. Well, anyhow, Fisher had their strike. They got straightened out. And then they began to whoop her up back in the plant on the Olds.
Okay.
And boy, that was, I'm telling you, that was a rough one. Flint had theirs too.
Yeah.
And they walked the beats with the officers. I was working on a special assignment then, and I wasn't a patrolman anymore. But they on the night shift they'd walk the beats with the fellows, and they'd question them every time they went to do something. You know,
Huh.
they'd be checking office doors with the others, they
Yeah.
were locked. And 3 or 4 of them stayed right in the plant protection office. Wanted to see what she's talking about on the telephone.
Huh.
And they were rough. They didn't know where they were, what it was all about. They just knew that they were on strike and they were going to have General Motors open the books. And I remember that. It was rough. And then when they went on strike, they wanted to close up the main office, building 62.
Okay.
But they wouldn't let them in the building. They wouldn't let them in the building. I was over there then too. And as an emergency, and I always did when we had a strike, I took over the communications
Oh, okay.
and keep a hot line going between here and Detroit. And also later when we had one right after World War II, we had a big strike
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And I went over there and brushed up again with Iola Harrington and on the communications. And that was a bad. It only lasted 3 days on the communications.
Uh-huh.
Then I was back at the plant and arrangements were made with the union, and the president of the union at that time was Elton Tubbs.
Oh.
Elton Tubbs and another fellow named Robert White and myself used to run around together over by Muir and Lyons, where Elton was raised. So I seen Elton and I had Bill Mahoney talk with him, and I was the only one permitted to drive an Oldsmobile car outside the plant. The reason for that, I sat on the telephone when they went out. They wouldn't let them take the payroll register out.
Oh.
So how did they know how they was going to pay them?
Right.
They owed them for a week and a half pay. So I sat on the telephone in the employment office and gave them every man's name and his address and clock number so they could send him a check. They sent him a check for just the 40-hour week, see?
Yeah.
I sat there and gave it to him. Well, lo and behold, we discovered that a lot of employees hadn't kept their address up to date.
Oh, yeah.
That checks were flying all over.
Oh.
We had one fellow by the name of Johnson. He got 3 checks. He was an employee, all right. 1 check was all right, but the other 2 were belonged to some other Johnsons
Oh,
of the same name. Well, all of them checks, I had to run them down. So after I got through with that, I spent the rest of the week just running down checks. Well, the complaints would be coming into the union hall because they didn't know where management was. They were located, they took up a couple floors in the Olds Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I spent all week running down checks. Lo and behold, they sent them checks for the half week, 3 days. That was left remaining, and I had to do the same thing again. One fellow who had retired from Oldsmobile about 20 or 25 years before that got a check. Well, here it's mailed to Grand Rapids. Now why it got to Grand Rapids, nobody was ever able to explain, because there wasn't any fellow by that name in Grand Rapids. It was an employee. So we got a call. So I went to Grand Rapids. I asked them to mail it to us. Nope. The lady says, my father is a very sick man. He's in bed. She says, we don't expect him to live very long. She says, he will not part with that check until he sees the person that sent it. Well, I had to go down and tell him I sent it, see. And why? Well, the old fellow pulled it out from under his pillow and he handed it to me. And he says he worked at Oldsmobile, I don't know, it's 20 or 25 years. And he says, I don't see how they had my name on file. Well, I says, I don't either. It isn't there, because I checked every name on that file. Well, anyhow, he gave it to me, and I thanked him, and I says, you know, you are a very, very honest man. I said, if you could have just forged your name, there'd never been any questions asked, but it probably never came near you. I says, it wouldn't have been worth the trip here down here to do anything about it. And I says, we've never had anybody as sincere about anything before as you are here. Well, I made him feel pretty good, but his daughter said he was apt to die any minute.
Yeah.
So I left. But I used to sleep over at the Union Hall. I would be so tired I'd go to lay down and take a nap. They was on Washington Avenue then, in a 1100 block,
Yeah.
in an old store building,
Okay.
used by, they used to call it the Arizona restaurant.
Huh.
Well, it was before Arizona got in there.
Yeah.
But we had all kinds of experiences there. I would anyhow, what I did, I know when Douglas MacArthur came, I was an honor guard on his outfit while he was in Lansing and through the plant. When he got to the west side of the plant, all the boys were ready for him that had served under him in the Pacific.
Oh, my.
And he was lined up there, and he went down the line, shaking hands and a few words to each one of them. Then came Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Well, they run him out of business, you know.
Yeah.
You know, one of House and Lassie's right-hand men is here in Lansing, working for the state of Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
He lived the third house from me.
I'll be there.
And he's working down here for the Department of Labor. He can't go back to Ethiopia, but he's still working on it. He's got a bunch of girls. He moved from here to East Lansing to better everything. He just got out there when the students had their riot. But getting back to House and Lansing is also on the honor guard there. We then Williams was the governor then, and Governor Williams was along with him. So then they went to Williams' home on Grand Avenue, which Williams had bought for $16,000. He lived in my cousin's house right beside the Coolidge Gardens
Oh, yeah.
on Main Street.
Yeah.
My cousin tried to sell it to him, and he said no, he's going to buy one on Grand Avenue. It was a big house. So they went over to his place, the governor's place, for a big feed and drinks and so on. And I had to go along too. And finally, Doug Barker said, Bill, he says, could you rush? It was, I don't remember the fellow's name. He was from General Motors, Detroit. He said, will you rush him to the airport? He says, you've got about 15 minutes. And he says, rush him to the airport, he's got to get back to Detroit. I says, okay. Well, I want to take the shortcut. Now, the shortcut would be down here to Waverly, from Waverly right straight across to 16. I got started down Waverly, and they're overhauling the road. Boy, there was no way to get through, and by the time I backed up and got around and got to the airport, the plane was just taking off.
Oh.
Well, I asked him what he wanted to do. So he said, wait till I go in and find out where the next plane is going. The next one's going in about 2 hours. He says, I'm going to stay right here to make sure I get on that plane. Well, I explained to him, but that explanation was no good. Well,
What about during the war, Bill? What did we do during the war different?
during the war, of course, we're all the patrolmen were auxiliary military police.
Okay.
We had a lieutenant colonel that was in charge of the entire operation, and he didn't have anything to do with production. But they had the ordnance inspectors. The
Okay.
ordnance inspector would be working alongside one of the Oldsmobile inspectors. The Oldsmobile inspector would be making twice as much money. Well, I was under a little higher classification then. I was working with the War Department. I was seeing that every employee in the plant was fingerprinted.
Okay.
And I'd done quite a few of them myself. But I had 5 men under me. They handled all the reports and all the complaints on theft or anything like that. I handled all the security problems, making sure that all files were securely locked that contained top secret and confidential information. On my tour of these, and most of them were located up at Building 64.
Okay.
On the 2nd floor. I go through there, and if I found a file of our security files, now I had set that up so that, you know, that big 4-drawer files, I'd set them up and run a rod down through the handles. And we had the maintenance department put loops in the top and bottom of the file cabinet. They just run this rod down through there, lock the cabinet, lock all doors.
Yeah.
Now I go down through there and I'd be checking. Here'd be a cabinet unlocked, maybe one drawer pulled out. Nobody at the desk. I carried some odd-mastered locks with me. I'd take the lock off there, fasten the rod down through there, snap my odd-mastered lock in, and just walk off and leave them. Now they had to call to get back in their file. I'd take a look on their desk, see if they had any of our confidential information. Every bit of that was stamped,
Oh, yeah.
either top secret or confidential. Well, I checked them. And I also had to run out all complaints on anything that was happening to anything that the ordnance department was losing. I also had to run down every complaint and bit of information on any person working in the plant who was involved in un-American activities. Now, that we had dropped communism. I had built up an enormous file on communism beginning in 1937.
Okay.
And working with the FBI and Colonel Gilmore with the state police. Now, what happens? Russia is our ally.
Right.
Yeah. Everything's fine. We're going to try and bring communism back out to the front where people can see it. They went underground, you know, and you didn't know who was a communist. So now it was un-American activities. You know, you'd be surprised. If somebody didn't like a fellow of German origin who was working in the plant, if he was closed-mouthed and wouldn't say anything naturally, he didn't want to say something and say the wrong thing, they'd report him. And they'd tell you things that wasn't true. I'd have to run that down.
Goodness.
And I'd get them guys in. And I'd corner them until I got to where they had lied. They had told me a fib. I says, you're ruining a man's reputation. They'll have him in a damn work camp. We did have some that they took to Washington. They wanted me to go, and I said, if I go, I'll be no good to Oldsmobile as an undercover man.
Yeah.
I says, they'll know who I am. So I said, I'm getting you the information, take them there. Well, then Bob Cook came to see me, and he wanted me to go to Washington on a couple of Plant Protection men who were German. I said, I don't want to go. I says, I give you a lot of information, and they've got a lot of friends. I said, what the hell good do I be if it gets aired out? Why'd I do it? Well, finally, we got a letter from Hoover, and he said that just pass any information you have off onto the FBI here in Lansing. And he says, keep quiet, keep undercover yourself. So I did, as well as I could, except that one of them did come back and told me, he said, Bill, I think you had something to do with this. I says, well, think as you please. If you believe it, there's no use in me talking to you. I says, I'm not going to fight the thing. I says, anything I would say would look like I was trying to crawl out of something. I says, even though I know that I haven't. So I said, you go out and believe in what you want to. Well, what had happened? He was German, and he immigrated over here for one purpose and one purpose only. They knew what Hitler was up to
Yeah.
at that time. For a few years there, he'd been going all over Germany there, shutting his head off. And this fellow had never seen this woman, but he sent to Berlin for her. She advertised, and I don't know how he got it, but she got here, they got married. He got her over here, they got married. And then she got friendly with another German. And now this fellow wanted, my wife at that time, 1937, my wife went over to visit her folks. She was born in Germany. And they wanted her to meet this woman and bring her back with him.
Oh, wow.
And she wouldn't have anything to do with it. So he married her. And she wasn't here only a couple of months. She went to New York. The FBI tried to run her down. She joined the Silver Shirts. That was a pro-Nazi organization. So during that 3 or 4 years, I was a busy man. Even the Plant Protection officers didn't know what I was doing. My wife worked with me. Naturally, she could talk German. She worked with me. We'd be out night after night, spending money, beer gardens, any place where they would gather, and gathering all the information we could gather, running down information that you had received. She was a hard worker on it.
Did the company finance you, Bill, to do those things?
No.
Or did that come out of your pocket?
I could turn it in to personal finances.
Okay.
Girl there by the name of June run them. And no questions would be asked.
Yeah.
Cook sometimes would repay me. And then he put it on the expense account.
Yeah. Was security much stiffer during the war then, inside the plant?
Oh, yes. A lot different. Everybody had a gun then,
Oh.
We'd have to let some of the fellows go. They'd be caught walking through some of the vacant buildings, twirling their gun, wild cowboy out west. They were gone, fooling with a gun like that.
Did anybody ever have to use one?
Huh?
Did anybody ever have to use their gun?
No. I didn't like to carry one.
Yeah.
I did because you're going through an area loaded with employees.
Yeah.
And you're just as apt to be shooting. Somebody's going to get hit. That shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, nobody should be hit. It isn't necessary to kill anybody. If you're going to pull out a gun, you're going to use it. That's the only reason you pull a gun. Just pulling it out and trying to scare somebody, that's no good. The police, I know Lansing police used to do that.
Yeah.
Pull out a gun, shoot in the air. If you're going to pull a gun, it's because you're going to use it. Well, I used to carry one in the shoulder holster. And I'd go out at night and walk along the railroad tracks, the area of our south-boundary line. Catch a few guys out there. Turn them over to railroad police or Nazi police. You never knew what the other guy's going to have, so
Yeah, that's right.
it's handy to flip a gun out of your holster. You have to. I never had to. I took guns away from employees up on the assembly line. Took one away from a Ford's plant. I don't know, probably half a dozen. Over here to Olds at the assembly plant. No trouble.
Yeah.
They'd have the damn thing out while they was working with employees, and if they didn't like an inspector because he was turning down some of their work, they'd pull this darn gun out or a knife.
And threat.
And I'd go there and take them away from them. I never had any trouble. I'd walk up to them. I want that gun. I want that knife. They'd hand it to me. And I'd take them back to the superintendent's office, and he'd shoo them out of there.
Mm-hmm.
One fellow, black boy, stood across the street, and there was 4 or 5 men there. And he stood across the street with a .22 rifle, shooting our windows out. Well, just then, one of our lieutenants, a fellow named Byron Abbott, he was walking across that parking lot that leads up to Building 68.
Mm-hmm.
And this fellow shot between his legs. Well, he walked so slow that you'd have to watch him for a couple of minutes to see if he's actually alive and moving. He was a slow walker. Well, one shell, he shot a couple of times, and one shell bounced off his shoe. Well, he got to 68 and he called me. So I went over there, and I see this young fellow and these other fellows, and I told him what he was doing. And I says, you fellows can't help but notice that he was shooting them windows out. And then he took a pot shot at our lieutenant as he walked across the parking lot. And they just laughed. I says, no laughing matter. Hand me your gun. He says, should I, Pa? Should I give it to him? His father says, well, what do you want the gun for? I says, to make damn sure he ain't going to shoot anybody else. So I took the gun. I never had trouble. I never had any reason to bring out a gun and brandish it around to scare somebody. Well, I got a .22 rifle on it. Well, I used to take them back, turn them over to the police with no questions asked. I tell you, some of the darndest things that'll happen. Our truck drivers hauling axles and everything from plants 3 and the Ford's plant to the main plant, coming down Olds Avenue. Well, one of them big trucks, you don't dare step on it unless there's a man in front of you. Mm-hmm. And you'll do everything you can to avoid hitting a person. But here was a dog running out in front of him, and he went over the dog. Mm-hmm. And he stopped, which he never should have done. He stopped. And he went out and got a hold of the dog and laid him on the curb. That's what you're required to do by law. You should pick up the dog and put him on the curb, and that's all you're required to do. Well, this big, strapping colored boy came up to the truck, and he told the driver, he says, you run over my dog. He says, I couldn't help it. He says, that dog run right out in front of me. He says, I can't stop this truck that quick. Well, he says, we're going to find out. He said, I want to pay for it. Well, the truck driver got back, and his boss called me, and he said, Bill, he says, I'm afraid something's going to happen here. And sure enough, it did. The next truck that came, they threw stones at it. Oh boy, right through the window, you know. I went down there.
J. Wedge of 431 Westmoreland, Lansing, Michigan. The interview was conducted by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center on January 25th, 1990 at Bill's home on Westmoreland. This is tape number 3 of 3 tapes.
238-9049. Time the recording was made, Harry was 87 years old, and it was made at the R.E. Olds Museum at the end of the Durant exhibit opening.
you heard my voice, you'll probably get
Oh,
on the camera.
no, it'll work fine. Now, this first picture is with a Durand hubcap and a photo of Durand in the background.
You heard well his hand holding it. The Flint Journal asked me to do that.
All right, and this was done, says Harry Weller's hand
No,
and...
no. Oh, it's done the same year. That's what you mean?
Yeah, that was 74, whatever.
Yeah, you went down in the...
And this one woman told me, she says, well, that dog don't belong to anybody. She says, just a marker that's been running around here. And he says, it picks up the garbage out of the garbage cans. She says, that's the way it lives. Well, I told her about this guy. Yeah, she says, I know him. She says, he just came up here. She says, just a couple weeks ago from down south. She says, he don't own no dog. She says, he couldn't even feed himself. So, I went back, got a hold of the guy, and I told him. He says, I don't care. That's my dog. He says, I want to pay for it. Well, went back and I seen Cliff go, and told him about it. And arrangements were made to give the guy $400 for the dog, but also what we done it for was since they wouldn't be stoning our trails. So there was just some of the many, many things you run into.
When did you retire, Val?
I retired last day in June 1970. You know, strange thing. I usually go to bed about 10:30.
How did you come by this
My wife, she isn't too well, and I think I'm awful sick. But bad does. Bad does. Walk on through with it, maybe they're half dying, but they're always on their feet. That's why they live long. But she's a wonderful woman. We've been married 62 years in March. Oh, I'm telling you, for the first day I met her, she kept getting more valuable to me. She's a wonderful woman. She always helped me. I'd come home from work, naughty cases. She'd sit down and talk with me. Boy, by the time I went to bed, I felt pretty good.
Bill, can you describe the, like, chief cook at all? Can you tell us about him? We don't know much about him. What kind of a guy was he?
Bob Cook was a pretty tough baby. He could get to the bottom of cases, but he didn't know what he was at the end of it. For instance, police tactics. Back in those days, like when he came in at 35, were much different than they are today. That's the reason that Miranda business got through the United States Supreme Court. My method has always been treat the guy as he would like to have somebody treat you. I would get a phone in for questioning. Never with anybody else in the room. Later, they wanted a commitment. I told you, get your commitment. And then they didn't want to say anything until the commitment got there. But as a general rule, when the man knew when I had him dead to rights, he didn't want no commitment. Now that was that commitment, probably 5% of the time. So, I'd get the man in, sit him down, close the door, and even though I hated it like the dickens, I'd tell him, go ahead, smoke if you wanted to, make himself to home, I'd get him a cup of coffee.
sidewalk.
I'd have one of the boys run out, get a cup of coffee, bring it in,
The next block.
And
across that building.
we'd talk a little bit.
So that night,
And I said, now, of course, you know, I didn't bring you down here just to pass the time of day.
He used to be manager of his bank. He was
Well, I
manager
said,
of Lansing and Lansing.
let us get to it. Well, now,
He liked Ralph, and they got along.
usually,
But-
and within
but
50
anyway,
minutes, the man would open up and
just,
tell me everything. Then I'd question him on anything previous to that, and if he had sold it, to who, and so on.
The old man.
Now, there never was a rough word spoken.
Ralph said, what did you say to the old man today?
Never. Once you do that, you're getting yourself behind the eight ball.
In that big building up there. and
Now,
he
when you've
went
got
in.
about so far on talking with a man,
Ralph, I know he's been
there's a quitting
pointing
point.
in there.
And if you
And
don't
I said, he
stop,
said to me, usually,
it's going to
well,
reverse
I'll tell you
itself and start going
what, I
backwards.
don't
Then he's going to start
understand
denying
how
it.
things goes on, 'cause
So
there's
I
only one
write
guy.
that is when I read, draw up the statement, a legal statement, and once he states that he understands what he is doing, and that he is giving the information to me without any promises or without any threats, and so on. Now, we get the statement, and I still talk nice and easy for them. I relieve the balance of the complaint to be filled out later. Then I'll walk back with him to his superintendent, and I'll show the superintendent the statement. And superintendent will give the suspension, and I'll walk the man out to the gate, and he's on his way. Well, maybe if it's a bunch of material that he's stolen, then that don't happen that way. Before I go to the superintendent, we get in a company car, go out to his car on the lot, search it, get the items out of the trunk, go to his home, which I have him sign the search waiver, go to his home. Now, here is another one. His wife, she could stop him from entering the house, even though he signed the search waiver. So I tell her, I'd like to know, I'd like her to know what it is that we're going in there for. I wanted to look at his toolboxes, in his little work area, and also at one of the trunk drawers of the kitchen. Always you find tools there. I said, we're not going to go into your bedrooms. I'm not going to have any drawers open. Anything that's personal. So, search the house. We put the stuff in the box. Now I tell him, you pick those things out. Let me look at them. And I says, those things that belong to Olds, you yourself put them in that box. And then we do it. I thanked the lady when we left. I says, he'll probably be home shortly. And she said, you want me arrested? I said, no. I said, I can tell you truthfully, you will not be arrested. I said, he's been very honest, and he has cooperated fully with me. And go back, and then I turned over to superintendent. The tools would be held for, maybe a month. We had a fault back there, the fisherman used, they had installed, and they was using part of that area. Now there's a lot of extenuating cases here. One would be where a fellow was taking some big things out. For instance, we had one guy that had taken about 20 transmissions. And we caught him one night. He had taken a transmission. I knew they was taken when they showed me the rack, where they were coming out of. And I kept watching there. In front of this one night, I got it just right. He picked the transmission That was a 442, I think, transmission. Nice one.
On the thing on 560
Uh,
10th Avenue.
He picked it out of this rack,
10th Avenue.
and it was at the east end of Building 32.
Recognize the house now because it's
That's where they were stored. He brought it out the door, and I slipped out the other door and watched. He tied a rope around, and he over a railing fence we had right by the building, down onto the ground below. Then he tossed the rope down and went back in. Well, I had to watch that darn thing to see what was going to happen to it. And with me, it wasn't a set-up policy with the plant. It was a set-up policy with me, my own. If it never left the plant, it was misappropriation. I had to see it leave the plant before you call it theft. So, I had to watch that here. He sure came out, had to put in time, waited a few minutes, goes out, pretty soon he comes out alongside the building, unfastens the rope, tosses it back up over the railing, takes the transmission down to the river. Now this is in the winter time. And he skidded across the river on the ice. Give it a shove and then walk along behind it. He got it across the river. And then he put it in the bushes. Then he had to go back and get his car. In the meantime, I jumped in the company car, and I went around her. And just as he drove down there and started to put in his car, I nailed him. He had taken 20 of the 442 transmission. He had sold them all, and you know he wouldn't tell who he sold them to. So, once a month, I would start a program of going to garages, and in some cases, some particular gas stations where they done repair work. And I'd go through that. I just mosey around and take a look at some of their tools, especially air tools. Always find something. And I was looking to see if there was any 442s stored to them. And up to Ithaca, I found, I'll be darned. But I covered Gratiot County, Clinton County, Shiawassee County, Jackson County, Clinton, and Eden, and Ingham. I cover them all. But I'd take about 3 days every month, and second-hand stores. Boy, I'd cover second-hand stores. You're surprised what you catch. Little stuff. So there was a couple of second-hand stores that got quite a lot of that material. They used to call me, somebody owed them money, an employee, and the employee wasn't paying them any money. Wasn't paying them for some of the things they bought. You got to do a horse trading. So I would give them the employee's home address, which they didn't have. All they had was they had your said he was working over the Olds, but they didn't have his clock book. I'd give him his home address. I wouldn't tell him where he's working over here. And they in turn saved me the trouble of searching their place. They'd call me when somebody came in there with some stuff. And there's some things they wouldn't buy, but they'd tell me who the fellow was, because he was selling other stuff to them. And that helped me out to be because I got an awful lot of stuff like. Well, them two birds and them two places were so good, I gave as much information as I could without violating a trust with Oldsmobile. And one day, I happened to go in there into one of these, and they had a whole bunch of these little radios that we used to have. Yeah, they just push it in. And he had some of them.
And from then on...
And while I was
What year would
there,
that have been, Harry?
would you believe,
24.
24.
Yeah. And
Homer
then
purchased.
in 25...
I never told him how I operated. And Bill Mahoney told me never to tell him. He says, all Homer does is go over here and try to pull out a deal and how he gave you the information to work on it. So I never told him what I was doing. Oh, he get mad at me. Well, sent me home one day. And I said, anybody's going home, it's going to be you. And I said, you better keep your damn mouth shut.
But anyway,
I says, I'm doing what management tells me to do. So, he strolls in there with another guy.
And at this time, it was just Plant Motors.
Taylor used to be chief of police. Yeah. Well, Taylor was a detective there. Detection girl. Him and Taylor come in there, and they see me looking at these radios. And boy, right away, Taylor arrested the manager. There was the end of my contact. I said, you idiots. I said, I was handling this case. Well, they said, this is police work. Well, now we was talking about police methods. There were some times when fellows would tell me their wife was pregnant, or that their wife was sick and had heart trouble. I'd tell them, call your wife and tell her to take the little children and go to the neighbors. I just tell them to do that. Now that sounds crazy for police work, for you to tell the wife that, you figure she knew what the husband had done. But I found out 90% of the cases, the wife didn't know what the husband was doing. He'd tell them that they bought that stuff out of salvage. Well, I'd tell them that they'd go and they'd take the kids and leave the house. There was no reason for it to be otherwise. No. But Bob Cook and this Taylor were two of the meanest men I ever seen to talk to an employee. And my first experience with that was that a fellow had just one arm, and he was working for Taylor of the plant garage, company garage. Well, I got suspicious of this fellow. And too many times our fellows have seen him pull out a lot of stuff, and he said he was taking it over to the Ford plant, or Plant 3. So on this one day, he had a shade full, and he was going to take it over to Plant 3. So the fellows called me, and just as I got out up to the gate, he had pulled out down there to Main Street. And instead of heading for Plant 3, he turned right. Well, I jumped in the company car, and I took after him. I couldn't catch him. So I come back and I notified Elm Street Gate, Mason Street Gate, that when this man comes back, check and see if he's got a chain pull in his truck. And he didn't have it. So I got him, brought him down Plant Protection. I talked to him over South Washington. That's a garage. They used to sell Ford cars, their old Ford cars. Andy was the guy's name. And there's where he sold it. And he had sold a lot of stuff to them. I told him, I said, now you better be honest with me. And I want this material back. I said, I don't want to have to spend any more time in court than I have to. I was spending an awful lot of time in court. And so they did. And I bought this thing back. And I got a hold of this bird and I went after him. Well, here's Taylor sitting in Bob Cook's office that day. They got him in there, and you never heard anything like it in your life. They was going to hang his hind on the fence. They'd use their size 10 shoe to boot him all the way through the place when they was going to hang him up. I tell you, you never heard anything like it. Well, that was one thing. I got awful mad about it. I told them, I says, you can use them methods and tactics when you're out with the state police or with the Lansing Police Department. But I said, this is Oldsmobile. And I says, we don't want any lawsuits brought against us for any such tactics as that. I says, you can't even fire that guy after you use such language as that. Well, he says, if you don't like it, you can quit, go and get yourself a job someplace else if you feel so bad about Oldsmobile. I says, you better feel bad about it too. And I'm not going anyplace else to get a job. I do perfectly well where I sat. And they were ready to let him go. After his 10 years or something, out he went. And so there were the police methods. There was a couple other detectives come down here. At that time, the boys were taking the cars from Building 68. We lived down into the little parking lot on the east end of the parking lot and stored them there. Then they bring them back and pick them up. And it seems that for about a month there, them cars were losing their spare tire. Smitty and Harley up there would tell me about it. They just have the reconditioning unit, put another tire in. Well, I went up there and I jumped up on it. I says, one of our fellows down in the parking lot seen a tire being taken off there, and I says, it was another car drove down in there and took the tire and left. Now I says, I think this has been going on for quite a while. Well, they finally admitted what had happened. Well, I said, for goodness sakes, that's about 25 or 30 tires. So that knew they were going to cut the workforce there. And 3 of them boys were going to be laid off. So I got the 3 boys down there before it came due. I worked on them until 6 o'clock at night. Now I had to take them out to lunch. And of course I had to pay for it. You have to feed them. So I worked on them until 6 o'clock. In the meantime, Cook got a couple of the detectives from downtown to come up. He was going to have them arrested. But he couldn't do that until he could prove what has happened. And the only way you're going to prove it is by talking about it. I didn't know who the guy was that had took that one tire. Well, they talked to me 3 times during that afternoon. And really roughed him up. One of them slapped him. Slapped one of the boys. So finally, in the end, I had to play this thing a little different. So I took one boy, and I said, you fellows sit here. And I closed the door, and I took him up where the fire marshal, Dick Kiefer, was, and I talked with him. And he finally said, yeah. I said, well, there was more than that one tire. Well, he said he didn't know. He wouldn't admit anymore. So I told Dick, I says, what's the boy Kiefer here? And I went back in and I said, and I said, he squawked. I said, he told me who the boy was that just got this tire today. I said, he told me everything. They opened up and gave me the whole damn story. In the meantime, Cook stuck his head in the door. He says, you've put in an hour overtime here already. So he said, you better let these fellows go. And he says, go on home. I said, no, they've admitted it. He said, what? I said, they admitted it. He said, good. He says, we'll take him right down to jail. Well, I said, you can do as you darn please. I says, I'll give you the information. And so they took the boys, all 3 of them in their office, talked for them about 10 minutes, took them downtown to arrest them. They got 16 of the tires back.
They did.
Yeah.
One day, I think it was,
Yeah. Well, I had the
yeah, I
names
know
of
it
places
was
they
38.
sold it to.
1938. My memory
I
says
said they
right
got
now,
16 back.
almost
Then they wanted me to
this time of
try and
year.
find out where the others are. I said, you've
And I
already
was laying on the bed
instituted
my home
proceedings
on
against
Sunday.
them. You got them in jail downtown.
I had to work too
I
hard,
says, you
but I went
fellas
home,
finish it up
and I
yourself.
had my
What?
noon meal.
This
and I
rough
went on the
tactics
apartment,
is
very
no good.
common.
It's no good. You'll get more flies without aid you will with vinegar.
On the field playing ball. We could do that.
Well, it sounds like, Bill, you overall had a nice career, though. You must have enjoyed that.
And the phone rang, and my wife answered.
Well,
He said, Mr. Durant.
that wears you out though.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Here
said,
you
"I'll
work
live
till
in
6
1938."
o'clock with that birds.
I said, hello.
That maybe
Terry said, "This is
10,
Billy."
11 o'clock you'd be called back to work
And
again.
of course, I said, no.
But it's awful long days there sometimes.
Yeah.
And he said, well,
Cook would holler about the overtime.
I said, well, sure.
I asked Bill Mahoney, I says, what do you want, service or try to
Well, he
save
started
money?
Mary Street,
He says, you
and
keep
then on
going
north,
as you see
7
fit.
o'clock, he owns and all that fun on the west side,
Well, they retired.
1700.
They retired Homer at
18
60.
and 1900 blocks. He owned
And they-
all that land.
Schwab,
One of the others. There's a
they kept
few
him
pieces of property
till he was
owned that
60.
set up.
Homer was
And then he owned west, and up on
3
three
years
blocks
younger than I am.
northwest, up
Schwab
on
was
Avenue
4
East,
years
he
younger.
owned some houses in there.
But they both went out at
So
60.
he had all fixed up what he owned, and he had options with
he
a lot
had,
of people that he could boss.
Purchase
or
called
took over
me.
the property.
We always got along,
And he
except
was a friend of
it
Steve
fits a
Avery,
jealousy of his.
who was
Uh,
manager and property
he
owner of Montgomery
called
Ward,
me
Minnesota. Billy knew
about a
him.
year before he
He
retired.
had Billy
Asked me all about
to Avery.
how I was getting along, what I was doing.
Well,
Well, I had always collected
and Billy
early
owned big
records.
property down
Going back to 1923, I started.
Yes, sir.
I figured someday if I ever retired,
Avery was quite
I'd-
favorable.
I'd
They talked to us for
play 'em.
probably years.
We didn't know anything about tape players
And,
then. And for
but
old
you know,
people, you know.
the war crowds in Europe.
Because I see a lot of old people,
You know that.
they was living some pretty sorrowful lives.
People now, he's just
The only way they got by was when their family took care of them.
a business and their finance backed out. Which I don't blame you.
So, as soon as I retired, I had thousands of records, old senators and everything. And when I retired, I started taping. Taping the best old K90s, then the roaring 20s. And
Middle part of
then I'd
one was the
take them out. I played in the nursing homes. One out on Derby Road. I went out there 7 times. They had a nice one out towards Eaton Rapids. And I used to go out there. I got called back out there. Gee, they want me to come every week.
Well, anyway,
And so finally they had WGIF TV come out and run it off with a little more advertising. Then I was getting more back in hand.
yes, that was the reason it's
Well,
problem.
then I
I
started working with Maury Crane in the Voice Library of the state, Michigan State. On Famous Voices. And I had a lot of them. And then I got into it heavy. So every time I sent him a tape full of Famous Voices, he'd send me a tape of anything I wanted from what he had. Well, it went way back to 1888. What's the earliest that anything could be done on a record?
Almost dark.
Edison had the proof of it.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything else until you begin to see these flat
We call him Billy.
disc records coming out. Fellow Berlin invented that. And they see that it was coming out and good sounding. So then he started working on it, but he had worked on the electric light
As I said
there
again,
for
you
10
all knew
years.
when he had more to say,
Well,
he didn't answer, you kept still.
So 1888 was there it is. And that's, I've got them.
He said,
Oh, yes, Florence Nightingale, you know, the nurse, mother of nursing, P.T. Barnum, the showman. Then we got all them. in 1890. And Kenneth Langtree, the bugler of the Light Brigade during the Korean War.
Not long ago,
Not only
I saw where
did he talk,
this
but he
priest
also
in
played
New
the
York
bugle that he
for
played
time,
there
and he
at the
could
charge of the Light
fire
Brigade.
Don't happen to have one on RE Olds, do you?
Now, lucky
Yeah.
his name was not mentioned.
Has Helen got one?
Article about it.
Well,
I know at the time.
I made
I knew
three.
he was in on it. So he said,
One of them I
said,
gave to Helen and she gave it to
The museum?
To the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They was having a little sale over there, a lot of old relics. And while I was over there, I went in to ask them how they liked the tape. And that was Mrs. Diller. She said they didn't have it anymore.
Well, they probably got it, they just don't know where it's at.
Yeah, well, I know who got it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. So then, I made him another one. And I took it over to him.
1940, I remember well.
So, one day I was around, and I was going to go there and look up something.
And he's one of the delegates.
And so I asked him about that tape, and that tape was
He
gone.
never took a plane, he took a train in to get a bus.
So, I made him a third one. And I told her, I says, I'm never going to make any more for you.
Where's your folks, Florence? She said, well, they're in Grand Rapids. So he sat around and talked to her, and finally, my wife used to like go home and children go home from school. See, she had another girl in the office, so she could leave like that, you know. And that's why our daughters grew up very good, because we didn't go where they please. We saw them in the home. So anyway, finally, he was still there talking to her.
Okay.
I says, you should put that. They used to put it in a slot there by her desk. I said, put it in a case. I said, after all, I said, I can't keep making tapes. She said they'd take care of that. That same guy, I don't know about the second one, what happened to that, but the same guy, she said she seen him with it in his hands. And she says, whether he borrowed it or not, she don't remember. She don't recall. And when he brought it back, here it is. I think it was a 45-minute tape. I looked at it, and it was all wound up tight, like a thin cord.
Oh my gosh.
And I told her, I says, that's no good. I said, I'll take it home and see what's happened to it. And I took it apart, and that tape, the whole length of it, was just like that, just like a little cord.
It's stretched.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we should have you make one, if you don't mind, for Helen, and then she'll put it in our archives over there, and then it'll be kept.
I tell you what you do.
We'll bring you a tape, and you can do that.
Have you got one with the, that you put your loaded tape in one end, and your blank tape in the other?
A double deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bring it over, and we'll run. I got two different tapes. I've got one, which is a shortcut on Ario's, but it gives his voice. And it gives about Oldsmobile on that one. And then on the other side, it's got the only talk that Henry Ford ever made for reporters. He didn't like reporters.
Yeah.
He had his place fenced in. He had guards. And he wouldn't talk to them. So the only talks that he ever made, and they were short ones, one was in which he talked about the McGuffey readers.
Oh, yeah.
Another in which he went to Washington, and he made a short speech for Herbert Hoover, and I forget what the other one was. He's got 3 or 4 little ones there. And I just, for the novelty of it, I went off that one on Ario's on one side and Ford on the other.
How about anything from like S.E. Skinner or McEwen or those kinds of people? Any audio on those?
No, I have one. You see, where I done. Now, I tell you where you get them. On all that phones, because exhibit display recorded an awful lot of voices.
Yeah, we've got all that
That is
stuff.
of people in Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
I just took one of Jack Wolfram.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I did that, Wolfram made a speech one night, and he forgot where he was at. And it was the Oldsmobile Executive Club, and he called it the Oldsmobile, it was the 20th
Oh, the quarter century
club.
Yeah.
It was a quarter century club, and he thought he was at the executive
Oh,
club,
yeah.
and he made that motor, and then he was so wrapped up in the cars that Olds made that he wouldn't listen to others. That's the reason he had everything pertaining to old cars destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't all destroyed, a lot of them went out and they're gone. They couldn't sell for waste paper. All they could do was burn it up. And I glommed into it and grabbed everything I could get. Early shop manuals and so forth, you know. And I also got the logbook of Heidi Olds and Son. That would be R.E. on the car that R.E. Olds was building.
You do?
Yeah.
You've got that?
Yeah.
Would you like to loan that to us?
Oh, I don't dare. I gave all this stuff.
You
I've
gave
got a
Helen?
box.
Helen's got a copy of that?
I've got a box that high,
Yeah.
loaded with old material.
Yeah.
And I have one by, well, I should get started on something if I don't remember.
Yeah, that's okay.
They used to make early cars as well here at Lansing.
Mm-hmm.
Edmonds, Jim
James and
Edmonds.
Edmund. Yeah.
I would oversee Jim Edmonds. He was confined to a wheelchair. Arthritis was killing him. And he sat there smoking black cigars and a quart of whiskey. And while I was there, the quart of whiskey ran out, and the woman that was taking care of him brought in another bottle. Pain. The man was in awful pain. This quite a few years ago. Anyhow, Jim gave me a whole bunch of old glass slides of early Lansing. First house built here, so on. And he had loaned these slides to some club, and they had broke 3 or 4 of the slides. And he was mad. So he had the rest of them all run off on these small ones, so you had them on a little turntable.
Yeah, the Kershaw.
And he had them all run off there. So he gave me this whole box of glass slides. I got a book from him that he wrote to tell about the history of Lansing, but he spent most of the time on Oldsmobile. Now, he made several things that were quite clear. And one of them is the first fire engine that was ever built in Michigan for fire department. Oldsmobile built the chassis, and a firm in St. Louis built the motor. Pumper.
Yeah.
Now, R.E. Olds didn't mention that in his book.
No.
Of course, then, I had a book because Doyle Fitzpatrick had bought up the whole lot from Franklin Decline. They were the ones that printed it.
Yeah.
So I got one of the books from Fitzpatrick, and I went over to Michigan National Bank, went up to see Mr. Olds. Told the girl I'd like to talk to Mr. Olds to get something cleared up. She says, okay. She went in and seen him, and he had her bring me in. And I talked with him there for a little while. And he autographed the book for me.
Nice.
And he was he's getting pretty old then, close to the time when he's going to die. I didn't know he was going to die, but because he looked pretty hardy. But he was a little dazed on his memory,
Yeah.
on some things. I asked him about the fire engine. He remembered something about it, that his father had helped him build it, the chassis. He said they wanted to use one of their motors, a gasoline motors on it, but this firm in St. Louis done it. But it was the first one, and the Lansing Fire Department got the outfit. Now, I called them, they said they didn't have it. I said, what the devil did you do with it? I had seen it before, because I used to take care of our ambulance. And I used to take the insulator down there and have them fill it. And I'd look around at their old fire trucks. And that one, a simple little thing, I used to look at that darn thing. They said they didn't have it anymore. I think they had. They wouldn't destroy that. They found a lot of that early stuff. But they said they didn't have it anymore, so I quit. But, so I talked to both of them then. It was Edmonds and Bates Motor Car Company.
Right.
They were located
Where the museum was.
right across from the library,
Yeah.
on the corner there. Knapp's had that for a while, or Penny's did. But no, Knapp's had that. And they also had a garage hooked to it that they built. Well, that's where the Evans and Bates Motor Company was. They built them 30 cars. They couldn't compete with REOs. They gave it up. So then we had another firm that was going to build trucks. They built 3, and they went bankrupt. White Motor Company used to build it.
Yeah, right. A lot of trucks. Well, you think we pretty well covered it, Bill? You did a good job.
Well, as much as you can remember, there's a lot of things.
Oh, I know. Can't expect to get 40 or 50 years of history in a couple of hours of tape, but
Yeah.
at least it gives you a good feel of it.
You know, Bob Cook wanted to get the boys a raise. In order to get them a raise from a 40-hour week at 40 cents an hour, he had to prove to management what we were doing. He got it taken out from the engineer, and he got the plant protection to come under the production manager. So we started this here. Everything, the boys were told to report everything they see was wrong. Open windows, lights left on, everything that would save the company money, see, if it was taken care of. Machines left running. Oh, you'd be surprised. Then I would have to take one copy of it around personally to every superintendent that pertained to his department, and then turn home a whole stack of them. And this one superintendent, Harry Beaver, at that time, he was plant engineer, and I had the toy, he shoved it off into the wastebasket. I said, Mr. Beaver, our officers went to a hell of a lot of trouble to save this company a lot of money. And I said, one copy of this goes to the production manager. He said, what for? I says, we'd like to earn our living out of this place. I said, we don't like to go home hungry. And I says, in order to get a raise, we got to show them what we're doing. And I says, this is part of what we're doing. I says, there's a lot of other things that some of the boys don't report. But I says, when your department goes home, or the production departments go home, and they leave all the lights burning, or they leave all the windows open here in the cold weather. And I says, some of the machines are running. I says, that's costing money. Yeah, he says, it sure is. He says, the heat bill over there, building 32, is pretty high. Well, he says, I'll look him over. So he pulled him out. The next time I come, I have to argue with him again. He says, some of this stuff don't amount to a darn. It was about leaking water pipes or steam leaks and so on. And maybe signs that were hanging up that old ones I had painted would be, wire would break and would be dangling in the air. And he says, it don't mean a thing. I says, it should be taken care of. I says, is he regular? But I had to argue with him. All the others, I had a good time with. Engineering building, that was a little rough. Although maybe Youngren was an engineer over there then. He didn't like it at all. But I managed to get by with him. Cook told me I'd have a rough time with him, but I managed to get by with him for the simple reason that Youngren's wife and Ralston's wife liked antiques, and them and my wife used to go out antiquing.
Oh, okay.
My wife had an antique shop then. And so I got by all right with them. Ralston was a swell guy, even a wonderful fellow. He just died short time ago. He lived ripe old age.
Yeah, sure did.
They used to have bottles of vitamin pills there. They had vitamins. Well, no, you know, I got along good with Jack Wolfram too. I used to go up to his office quite often, but only on business, never went for a visit.
Yeah.
He didn't have time for visits.
Yeah.
He caught up with Purchase one time. Purchase used to come in about 10 o'clock. Every morning, 10 o'clock. And one morning, Wolfram always came in early and made a tour of the plant in his car, and then if he seen guards or something out in the middle of the street that would interfere with a fire truck, he'd make a note of it. When he got back, he'd call material handling on it, get them streets cleared. And this one day there was something, I forget what it was, and he called Cook. Or he called Purchase, I mean. He called Purchase. Purchase wasn't there. But he said, tell him to call me when he comes. Well, by the time he come, Luana Manning, his secretary, had forgot what Jack Wolfram said. So, next morning, 10 o'clock, Purchase comes in again. And meantime, Jack Wolfram had called. So Luana told him that second time that he had called the day before, and he called that morning to talk to him about something. So Purchase called him. After that, Purchase was in there about 7:45 every morning. And not only that, Wolfram made it a point to call all the superintendents all around the plant. He done that every morning for a while. He got everybody on the ball.
Checking up on him.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, about ready to quit?
Well, yeah. Yeah, you know,
I got one other task for you.
the only way you gauge success is cooperation of others.
True.
And I had, due to the fact I've been there a long time, I do most all the supervision and the employees, the hourly employees, especially out of maintenance. And when anything would start, like tickets on football games and baseball games, playing paychecks, you know, paycheck numbers, I'd hear of it just the minute it got started, and I'd put it into it. And it was easy. When you have a good grapevine, I get most of my calls here at home, and then we could talk freely.
Yeah.
And I always told the boys, I says, when you call me to give me the information, do not identify yourself. Then I don't have to protect your name.
Okay.
And so they did. And I'd get a lot of, no, my wife would get them. I'd be sleeping maybe. But anyhow, I'd get all that information. Oh, I stopped a lot of them. I stopped one in the motor plant. Foreman in there, his wife was working on the motor line. They'd play the check games. She won every week.
Oh, gee.
She won every week. Well, nobody lost their job. But the foreman was transferred over to Plant 3. And, of course, the check game stopped. But you can only be as efficient as your minutes. So the reason I'm telling you this is that after I left, and the new chief was brought in from the Lansing, retired chief, Donahue called me and wanted me to go over and have a talk with him. He wanted to talk with me. So I went over and I talked with him, and he wanted to know how I managed to take care of all of this. How did I find out what was going on? And he says, you go back there, and he says, the plant start asking questions, and he says, everybody will clam up. He says, they don't talk. I said, you made the wrong approach. I says, you can't do that. I says, the fellow will figure, if somebody next to him gets called in on something, they'll figure that he ran it on him. I says, that isn't the way to do it. Well, he says, what did you do? I says, I had to know a lot of people in the plant. And I says, they, in turn, didn't like what they seen, and I says, they'd call me. But I says, I can't give you their names. They don't owe you anything. I says, they did it for me. Well, I says, you certainly, being in police work as long as you was in the Lansing Police Department, know that you had an awful lot of communication with people that gave you information. And I says, you kept that to yourself. You didn't tell any of the other officers or anybody else. Yeah, he says, that's right. Well, I says, you'll have to learn that by yourself. Now, I says, you got Bob standing there. He don't like the way I operated. So I says, you find out how he's operating. Well, he says, I tried it. And he says, every time he goes to talk to a man, he says, you got to have a commitment down here.
Well, that's two different guys' ways of doing business.
Yeah,
So,
everybody has their own
yeah,
method.
that's right. They sure do. They sure do.
But I always took it upon myself that I had a home. I was eating good 3 square meals a day. I was enjoying life. And my wife and I had all we wanted of anything we wanted to buy or collect. And I owed it all to my job over there. So I thought, a lot of them were condemning the place they worked. No, you can't do that. I know Frank Nopka. He was a pipe fitter over here to Ford's plant, and then he had to be foreman. He didn't like the foremanship, so he transferred back over to the main plant. Some of the boys there were yelping about how tight Oldsmobile was and all they was letting out all their grievances to him. And he said, well, if Oldsmobile is making so much money and you don't like it, he says, go over to Motor Wheel. They're about ready to move out of town. They're almost bankrupt. He says, there's where you should be working.
A lot of truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there isn't much left of Oldsmobile in Lansing.
No.
They say 2 years from now, there won't be a car made here.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Well, you see, all our big jobs are made out of the state. And this last one, all I know is what I read in the newspaper, the other day, that they had talked with somebody out of Detroit, and they said that, 'cause, 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 ' The car they're making here now will only be made here for about 2 years.
Don't believe everything you read.
Huh?
I say, don't believe everything you read.
No, but I have been following a lot of this, and it was worse than what I heard. Though I don't like to see that, I thought eventually anything that's made for Pontiac and Cadillac might pull out of here. Go back to Pontiac and Detroit. Buick, there's quite a haggle between here and Flint. Flint seems to have quite a payroll there yet, today. Yet they claim they got about 18,000 unemployed. Eventually, perhaps, Buick might pull out, and Oldsmobile would be back into the plant here again. That's been my hopes. The thing is gummed up now. I know a lot of people over there, and I got a lot of relatives over there, and I keep pretty well informed. But it's going to be a long haul if it happens, but things are changing so fast. Mm-hmm. You know, still, some of them old buildings still there. That was built back after the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Like all the 16, A, B, C, D, 25, 17, 26, 77, they're still there. Of course, they shored them up. They knocked out the old wood beams and put in steel supports. They had quite a session on that. They used to have 4-weight sights. I painted for all over. 250 pounds or 50 pounds per square foot.
Yeah.
Well, truckers, how'd they know? They'd bring a car in, it was loaded center there. Then pile another one on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
They always were short of storage space.
Yeah.
We were short. I used to work with the audit department. I'd have to call them in quite often. And at the end of the run, I'd take my complaints on what I had, on what had been stolen. And then I'd have the audit department check and with the management and especially material handling and everything to determine what was scrapped out and what was in storage at that particular time. And we always jived along pretty close together. Not exact, but pretty close enough we didn't worry about it. But this one day, we had about 300 of them 442 transmissions. Now I said, I know where some went, and we got some back. But I said, not that much.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd claim me for it, you know.
Yeah.
So I dug out all the complaints and all the communications that I had, and I kept everything on file. And there was no such thing, couldn't be.
Yeah.
So I took one auditor and one fellow from Stores 5, material handling, and we went on a search.
You want to get that, or you want me to shut this off?
What are we talking about?
Well, let's see. We were talking about auditing transmission.
Oh, yes. Well, on that 442 transmissions, we got one auditor, and one of the boys of material handling out of Stores 5 at the other end of 32, or 75 rather.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we're going to search every area around here, the storage area, and see if we can't come up with something. Well, the fellow in material handling said they had already searched. I think Jerry Mahoney was superintendent over there then. And so I took him. And away we went. And then we went down into the basement of building 19. I said, did you search here? Well, no, he says, I just walked through here. He says, the front end there, and they were big cardboard boxes of stuff. In back of them was the 442 transmissions.
Nuts.
Boy. But that was a big hullabaloo.
Yeah?
Oh, that many. They was accusing of truck drivers of hauling them out in their trucks. Well, I can't think of,
Yeah, that's a good job.
things always pop up.
No, that's
you know.
all right. Yeah, that's
Backs
all
are
right.
early.
Well, let me shut this off then. Bill, I got one other thing I'm going to have you do, though. We ask everybody to sign a release that allows other people to listen to the tape other than you and me.
Oh, anybody, I don't care.
Okay. Well, I'm going to shut this off.